Greetings, dear audience, dear friends. Today, with People's Unity Club, we are coming to you face to face with Alexander Kazakov. Myself, I'm an Alexander. We have Larry Johnson over as our best guest. He is ex workers with the CIA. He's one of the top commentators and podcasters concerning the political agenda for today. And we're gonna have a great topic. I will name it to you once we say hello to Larry.
Hello, my friend, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, at least where I am, it's fairly warm. It's about 20 degrees centigrade or Celsius. I'm not, no snow.
It's a bit colder here, just a little bit. It's minus 15, and we have so we have so much snow that it's above the roof of the car roofs. So it reaches, yes, it reaches that height. So a real Christmas here, real winter. So shall we begin and launch
Yes.
the topic for today that I would love to discuss with you? In Russia, we have, and it's a problem not just in Russia, but also in a perception of the positions where United States stands, that, especially for the last year. And we have some kind of optical illusion here. And we, as international specialists, we question it. And we catch ourselves thinking that this is not the policy of the United States it's not the politics from the United States, and it's not really the White House policy, right? Because there are different politicians there. So whenever we watch these or those events, we can say that no, this is the policy of Donald Trump, who is the President of the United States of America. And even, say 15, 20 years ago, we were speaking about United States policy or politics, right? Politics or military politics. They had the status of where one party took it from the other party. There was some kind of agreement. And now Trump is breaking not just international law as we speak, but he is breaking the core of the politics of the Washington, D.C. that has so many voices, and we definitely cannot have a true picture, and we can't have our own point of view without them analysts from United States, from professionals from the United States. So what I would like to ask you is that tell us, share with us, what kind of groups of influence or influential groups that are present now around Trump, who's got the right? Do they go against each other, disagree in what they form as a policy of the United States, politics of Donald Trump?
Yeah, good question, Alexander. I frankly, I'm shocked at what I'm seeing here in the conduct of Donald Trump, um, especially given his current actions and pronouncements, what he's saying, because it's as if an alien spacecraft came from Mars and picked up the real Donald Trump and replaced him with a clone, an evil clone. 6 years ago, 7 years ago, when Trump was talking, he was rejecting the idea of regime change in other countries, getting involved with foreign wars. Now, that's all he's about. In fact, as we're talking, the news is flashing. I've got RT on in the background that the United States is evacuating military personnel from the Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. That's a sign, an indicator. The United States is going to attack Iran again. Um, so when you're looking at Trump, yeah, I don't think he's not necessarily the person setting policy. The, what we call the deep state, the bureaucracy, and it's and maybe I should try to help explain that. The career civil servants who have been who are at the top, leading the CIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, State Department, the Department of Defense, or they now call it the Department of War. They are they have relations as well with the major and military industrial corporations. And so it really is a form of fascism that the government they profit off of war. There's no incentive to reduce expenditures. Uh, are incentives to create foreign enemies, and by creating these foreign enemies, justify spending. Well, right now it's more than $1 trillion, and Trump is talking about expanding the budget of the War Department to $1.5 trillion. That, uh, you know, Russia and China combined don't have a defense budget that exceeds $500 billion. So the other influence that's really holding the United States hostage are the Zionists, Israel. Uh, the belief that Israel is a special place, that they are the chosen people of God, and that we have a religious obligation to support them is very much a strong belief of Donald Trump. And so as a result, this need for an enemy and this desire to serve the interests of Israel, regardless of the cost, those right now appear to be the two driving forces in U.S. policy.
Okay, so then let's put it more in details. Those who are watching the politics of from Washington D.C., they have such a point of view on top of deep state that Trump has a few of those elite, powerful groups that have completely different goals rather than Trump, very much away from what Trump has in mind. For example, is that the state secretary, what he has, he's not a Trumpist. Rubio, he doesn't, he has his own ideas, his own point of views, and a group of completely different people, completely different powers standing behind his back, just like what we call about the club of billionaires club that stands by Trump, and it doesn't seem to me that the interest of those billionaires are in agreement with the group that are standing behind Marco Rubio. All this variety of groups, they influence Trump because these people, a very important perimeter to speak about, those that work with analytics in Russia, we have like a list of people that Trump brought with him to the White House as his people, his circle. We understand the principle of selection, why these people are chosen. Trump chose people that we think what we call dissidents. And their future is connected only and personally with Mr. Trump. The chief of FBI, Tulsi Gabbard, not Chris Noam, and other people, and Peter Hegseth including, the military, the minister of military, they have no future without Trump. So they are faithful to say to Trump, but the rest of them, There's different money, different sources, different people, and all of them are fighting for the position to be with Trump or for Trump's position. So what I'm saying now, it's quite a stable perception of how the White House is built now. And every time when Trump says something out of blue, right, extravagance, like a Venezuela's operation, the first question comes to mind: who was sitting by Trump at that moment? Who was preparing the material? Who was making him push to do that? Punch the button, right? Push the button. And then they show us the situation room where we see how Trump watches the drone. So these groups of people that are sitting right now as we speak in the White House in the neighboring rooms with Trump, how much the policy between them determines the Trump's position.
I don't know how well known Trump's earlier career is in Russia, but Trump made his name in television doing a show called The Apprentice, and he played a character in which he was the ultimate boss. He could hire and fire. His job
Да,
was to
да, знаю.
select the best talent, and and so when he entered office as president, there was this assumption that he was going to actually be president like the guy that we saw on television, that he was going to choose the best people, surround himself with the smartest, the most talented, the most gifted people. Well, it turns out that was a lie. That he didn't do that at all. He did exactly the opposite. And let's go back to his first term when he chose John Bolton to be his national security advisor. That's like choosing to have cancer. Uh, he selected
Да,
Chris, Chris,
да, точно.
Christopher Wray as FBI director. So now we enter his second term, and he hasn't done any better at all. Actually, what he has done is surrounded himself with people that will not push back and won't tell him no. Um, so Pete Hegseth, Marco Rubio, as you pointed out, uh, they don't have the political strength. They certainly don't have the personal wealth to tell Trump, no, that's crazy. Trump, there's Trump does not have a person around him to say, stop pressing the accelerator on the automobile. You know, put the brakes on. And as a result, we're seeing now a series of very, very reckless, dangerous actions on the part of Trump. Um, and 2 weeks ago, on Sunday, December 28th, we saw while Trump is meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky in Mar-a-Lago, they launched the Ukraine launches 91 drones at the official residence of President Putin in Novgorod. Um, Trump knew about that, I believe. In fact, I think Trump had agreed, okay, yeah, let's try to kill Putin because those drones could not have been launched without U.S. Support. So if Trump wasn't involved, then it means the CIA is doing its own thing completely outside of his control. Um, and we hear Trump now talking about forcibly taking Greenland, which and he's not kidding. Um, the threats he's making against Iran, the military action that was taken in kidnapping President Maduro. So let me turn the question around to you. Uh, it would I believe that these last 2 weeks, starting December 28th with the attempt to kill Putin has forced a complete change in how Russia, and particularly President Putin, view Donald Trump and are going to deal with Donald Trump. Is that the case or not?
Well, Larry, what I would say is that among experts, professionals, society in Russia, it's been already for a year that the opinion have taken two camps. It's not more or less. I think it's 50-50. There are the ones that are trying to find in the policies of Trump rational seed, and some think that he's one more actor on the throne who lives due for a TV picture and post and social media. I count myself in the first category. I see the rational beginning, but what has started on 28th of December, that's our experts, what they say is they just put it into more parlors. They just said that Trump's policy is irrational or situational. There are some that think that there's Trump in the morning, Trump in the evening, different Trumps, as we say, lunar Trump and solid Trump, as we have a meme in Russia. But the people that they thought about that, they think now more deeper into it. So the policies, what's important is that we are in negotiations with the United States, right? We're in the process, and we count ourselves in as we want to come to peace and not to the big war. Of course, we have great interest for the policies of Trump, the surroundings around him, and etc. You spoke about what they try to launch the attack against Putin. Our technical specialists, they say that yes, you can manage and give the targets, consultations, supports to all those drones and rockets, though they didn't use rockets, without Americans. British people can do that. Yes, they can do that. That's what our specialists say. We don't know who does that. We don't know. But if you are right, as one of your opinions that you voiced, that if Trump didn't know, then CIA does something. What, in secret away from Trump? So, and I know both, and I heard from you as ex-analyst from the CIA, you know exactly that sometimes the first face, right, asks their agents not to speak about the operations, that in the case where you have to participate in a public event, you just say, oh, I didn't know. They notify them, the leaders, later. We all know these things, that all presidents do that, all prime ministers do that. Is there a probability, counting the Radcliffe's personality, the head of CIA, his political birth, is there a possibility that CIA plays against Trump?
I was willing to entertain that as a possibility until, again, witnessing Trump's actions over the last 2 weeks. It's not the CIA that's making Donald Trump say, hey, we're going to take Greenland because we got to stop Russia and China. That's Trump. The threats that Trump is making against Iran are Trump, not the CIA. So, I had raised it as a possibility that the CIA was acting as a rogue agency, acting without regard to the president's instructions. But I think it's just the opposite now. I think what Ratcliffe is doing It's being done with the full permission. I won't say the full knowledge of Trump because, as I think you know, there's this thing called plausible deniability. You want to keep some information away from the president so he can pretend that he didn't know. But what we're seeing is the decisions that and words of Donald Trump are not the words and actions of a person serious about peace. And I understand why President Putin wanted to try to develop a relationship with Trump and to secure a negotiated settlement, a peaceful solution to the threat that NATO poses. But I, if I was advising President Putin, I would tell him very clearly, you cannot trust the United States. But Trump has been very clear. He does not recognize the concept of international law. He doesn't recognize that there are limits
Да.
to what a government can do. He has taken the position that he can do whatever the hell he wants. And it's just whoever's the strongest, the meanest, the most vicious, that's the rule. That is the kind of law that he embraces. And if I'm Russia, the only thing you can do with that is, you have to fight it.
Sounds
Звучит
right after
сразу
New
после
Year and
Нового года
Christmas.
и Рождества
Sounds
звучит
quite
довольно
vicious, as you said,
страшно.
quite evil.
Совет
To fight
сражаться с этим злом,
this
потому что
evil,
сражаться с таким,
if it is
если
so,
это так, то сражаться
there's
с
only
этим
one
можно
way
только
to
одним
fight it.
способом. Потому
Because
что
political
политических
mechanics
механизмов
to hold Trump back,
сдерживания Трампа
there's
нет.
none. He
Он
goes against the
нарушает
law,
правила,
and to hold him
сдерживание
back, they
возможно только в рамках
only
правил,
you can hold
в
one
рамках
back only in a
уже
framework
существующих
of rules,
договоренностей, а он
and
просто
he
их нарушает.
refuses from all those rules.
И тогда
So it
получается,
turns out that
что мы
we're
подходим
heading
к
straightways to the
глобальному
global
вооруженному
military conflict. And still,
Все-таки,
remember, Larry,
помните,
in
Ларри,
Moscow,
мы в Москве еще,
when we had an
когда с Марией
interview
Захаровой
with Maria
встречались, я ставил
Zakharova
вопрос
together,
о рациональности
I was
и
speaking about the
иррациональности
rationality
политики.
in policies. So, in
У
Soviet
нас в
Union,
Советском
late
Союзе в
years of
позднем
Soviet
был
Union, we had a
очень
very
известный, знаменитый мультфильм
popular
«Каникулы в
cartoon
Простоквашино».
about the
Ну, это условно
village
маленькая деревушка под
vacation,
Москвой.
a little some kind of village
Я
around
не буду
Moscow.
рассказывать про мультфильм, потому что там
One
важна
phrase is
только
only
одна фраза.
important. When
Когда папа
the
главного
father
героя
of the main
видит
character
безумное
sees
поведение,
his
свое
own
собственное
crazy
безумное
behavior,
поведение,
he
с
says,
ума
"Are you guys
сошел.
crazy?" He says the
А он
following
говорит,
phrase.
это простужаются все вместе, а с
It's
ума
that they
сходят
said that you
поодиночке.
can catch a cold as a group of people, right?
И
But to
в
get
этом
crazy,
смысле,
it takes
когда я
one
говорю
person.
о
Otherwise,
рациональности
it's not
политики,
infectious.
что это можно так
So you
воспринимать
can
и
kind of
интерпретировать,
use this phrase in politics. Even
Трамп
Trump
даже
shows to all of
показывает
us
нам,
that he
что он не
does not
принимает
take
решения
decisions
один,
on his own,
что
that
есть
there are
рядом с ним
people
люди, у
beside
которых
him
есть
that
право
have the
голоса.
right to
Другое
speak,
дело, он принимает их
and that he
позицию или
takes
нет,
that
но
position
право
not.
голоса у
There's
них
a
есть
there's a
право
Marco
голоса у
Rubio. He
каждого.
has a right of voice,
И мы
and we
знаем
know
о тех
thousands,
сотнях
hundreds of
миллионов,
millions who
которыми это право голоса
confirm that right of
подтверждено.
vote with a
И знаем, кто эти
right to
миллионы
vote.
переводил.
There's a
Есть
rightful
право
voice from the
голоса у
military and
военных и спецслужб.
special
То есть эти
forces.
решения все равно принимаются
All these
в
decisions are taking
ситуационном
place in the
комнате.
situational room.
Я с трудом верю,
I find
что
myself hard to believe that Trump just
Трамп
speaks,
просто
hey,
говорит,
we
мы
turn
идем
on left or
направо,
we
и
turn
он
on
идет
right, and
налево,
everybody
все
says, yes,
просто
sir.
кивают головой. Даже
Even
у Зеленского не
Zelensky
так.
is not
Даже у
is not the
Зеленского
same
есть люди,
picture.
которые
Zelensky
говорят,
says,
давайте
let's think,
подумаем,
let's take
давайте
a
сделаем
let's take
паузу.
let's take a pause.
Потому что если
Because if you have a
рациональное
rational
начало
beginning in
в политике Трампа
politics of Trump at the very
отсутствует,
beginning,
то тогда
then his policy is not
не
under
поддается
any rational
рациональному
understanding.
осмыслению.
Then the
Тогда тот
chaos,
хаос, который он
what he does
производит
with
своим
his
действием,
actions, is the
соответствует
chaos that he
хаосу в
has in his
его
own head.
голове.
Yeah.
Но
But if it
если
is
это
so, it's a
так, Ларри, это
catastrophe.
катастрофа,
It's a
причем
worldwide
всемирного
catastrophe.
масштаба.
Yeah, it's an Trump. I think there's actually something mentally wrong with Trump, dementia from his age. And the danger is there is nobody around Trump that has the stature to tell him, no, you can't do that. The closest we've had, I've heard stories that J.D. Vance, the vice president, is one who's tried to talk Trump out of doing certain things. There was a report that the late Charlie Kirk, who was murdered in September, even though he's much younger, had warned Trump against expanding the war, going to war with Iran, because it would completely alienate Trump's base. But now the the policies are irrational. And let me just use Venezuela as an example. Initially, I believed that, okay, well, they're doing this because of the oil, because Venezuela reportedly has this vast oil reserve. But the truth of the matter is, Venezuela produces very little oil, and what it produces is very expensive oil. It's sort of like trying to suck peanut butter out of a jar with a straw. It's very thick, it's very difficult to move. And with 700,000 barrels a day, that represents 2% of OPEC's total production. And in terms of global production, when you add in the non-OPEC countries, it's about 0.7%. Well, that's nothing. That doesn't move the oil market. That doesn't, it's not a game changer at all. So, okay, the oil's not the reason. The drugs, again, the drug was they're claiming that Venezuela was this big mover of cocaine and marijuana. They've been doing that for years, not in great volumes, but they've facilitated the transit of drugs. But they're not producing the cocaine. I mean, if the issue is that we got to stop the folks who are producing the cocaine and the fentanyl, well, that's Mexico primarily, Colombia to a lesser degree, and even China with producing the fentanyl. But he didn't go after those. So my point is, that what you would think would be a rational basis for decision is not there. The choices are irrational. It's almost, it appears like the real reason for Venezuela was that there's this 81-year-old billionaire named Paul Singer who won a $12 billion judgment against Venezuela and now will basically have the right to refine the oil coming out of Venezuela. So Trump's paying off a friend or paying off someone who's made cash donations to him. The other aspect of what we're seeing with Trump and his family right now is corruption. They are literally making decisions that are enriching them as a family. So there is I guess my broader point is there's no rational policy being made. It's a different, entirely different calculus. And my concern is whether or not President Putin recognizes that, because he's not dealing with a rational person.